Hi everyone, in this lesson we're looking at using regression to model a trigonometric data set. So we've used the calculator before to do regression. We're going to try it today using sinusoidal regression. So we're going to work on this sinusoidal regression task. And in the task, we're going to determine a sinusoidal regression model equation for each data set. We're going to graph 3 equations on the same graph, and then we're going to determine if the graphs intersect, analyze the results, and determine if they are representative of what was observed in the data. Now, just a note here, the calculator will give the regression equation in this form, all right? When working with sinusoidal regression, the calculator is going to assume that we are in Radian mode. So we want to make sure right now, just to start off, that everyone is in Radian mode. So this is a heavy calculator lesson. You should have your graphing calculator handy. We're going to open up the calculator and you're going to go to mode. And you're just going to make sure that radians is highlighted. If radians isn't highlighted, just go down, highlight it, hit enter, and now you can quit out. All right, we took care of that. The table below shows monthly temperature averages in degrees Fahrenheit for Syracuse, Washington, and Austin. And so what we're going to do to start is we're going to enter all of this data into our calculator. So we're going to go, we're going to clear the list first. So second plus sign, and we're going to choose number 4, and we're going to say clear all lists. Okay, that's just the best way to start. And we're going to go to stat, we're going to go to edit, and we're going to enter in the data. So the first column is going to be list 1, the second column of data will go in list 2, third column in list 3, and the fourth column in list 4. So I would pause the video, enter the data, and when you're ready, come back. All right, and what I would suggest is just take a moment and go back and double check that you've entered all the values correctly. So we've taken care of step 1 here, enter the data into the lists. We have our months in list 1, Syracuse in list 2, Washington temps in list 3, and Austin temps in list 4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a scatter plot of the data, and I'll show you how to do that. The steps are listed in the notes, but I'll show you, I'll demonstrate it. All right, so we're going to quit out of the list. We're going to do second mode. And we're going to turn stat plot on. So we're going to go to second y equals, and we're going to hit enter, and we're going to turn this on. All right, so we're going to choose the first plot, we're going to highlight on. And then we're going to make sure that we have the scatter plot highlighted, and our lists are going to be set to list 1. And if it's not, you would do second 1 to get to list 1, and second 2 to get to list 2. All right. And then we're all ready to go. It says select the mark of your choice. I mean, I usually just pick the first one in the box. Now what we're going to do that we have that all set up is we're going to do, this is very important, zoom 9. Okay, so you'll see in the notes, I put a big note here, zoom 9. So go to our calculator, we're going to go to zoom 9. And that's what you should see. So that is a scatter plot of the Syracuse temperature from January through December. Now what we're going to do is we're going to choose sinusoidal regression and create a model for that first set of data. So let's go back to our notes. And the sinusoidal parameters are described here. Iterations is the maximum number of times that this command is going to iterate, repeat, to find the equation. So it can be any integer from 1 to 16, but 16 generally gives the most accurate result. The default is 3, and for our example, we're gonna go with 16. We're gonna just get the most accurate result. X list, that's where we have our X values, and the Y list, that'll change depending on which data set we want to look at. So The period of a sinusoid is the length of one complete cycle. For this example, since there's 12 months in a year, and so it takes 12 to complete one cycle, the period is 12. And we're also going to store our equation into y1, vars, y-vars, function, and y1. That just makes our life easier, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so let's go back to the calculator, and we're going to go to Stat, Calc, and we're going to go down to Sinusoidal Regression. So we're going to choose Sin Reg, hit Enter. All right, the iterations we said we were going to use, we want the most accurate result, so we're going to say 16. The X list should say list 1. If it doesn't, you would do second 1 to get list 1. Y list should say list 2, second 2 to get list 2. We said our period is 12. And we're going to store the regression equation so we don't have to type it. So we're going to go to vars, y-vars. We're going to select number 1 by hitting Enter. And we're going to select number 1 by hitting Enter. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to calculate. And there's our regression equation. Now on the next page, it's asking for the sinusoidal regression models for each different city. Right, we're going to round to 3 decimal places. So we're going to use these values and write the sinusoidal regression model for Syracuse. So now what we want to do is we want to find the regression model for Washington. So we're going to go back to our calculator and we're going to go back to Stat, Calc, and we're going to choose Sinusoidal Regression again, Sin Reg. So just a reminder that the data for Washington is in list 3. So our X values are in list 1, but for Washington, our Y values are in list 3. So our iterations are 16. Our X values are in list 1. Our Y values are in list 3, second 3. Our period is 12. And I'm going to store my regression equation in Y2 because I already have the regression equation for Syracuse in Y1. So be careful here. We're going to go to vars, y-vars, we're going to choose function, and this time we're going to choose number 2 and hit calculate. And so there's our equation, and we're going to write that down. Now, if we go back to our calculator and we go to y equals, you'll see that we have the 2 equations there so far, and we can look at the graph, zoom 9 for zoom statistics. And we're going to see our first model and then our second model. Now we have our stat plot set to plot the points for our first set of data. So that's why we have points for our first set of data and not the second set of data, but that's okay. Now we're going to create the sinusoidal regression model for the third set of data. So we're going to go back to Stat, Calc, we're going to choose Sin Reg. You can use the up arrow to be a little quicker if you want. We want 16 iterations. List 1 is where our X values are. For Austin, our Y list is in list 4, so we're going to do second 4. Our period is 12, and we're going to store this equation in Y3. So we're going to go to vars, y-vars, enter, and we're going to choose 3. Otherwise, we'll override the other equations. All right, that looks good. Calculate. And now I'll write this equation down. All right, we've taken care of that. Now it says graph the 3 equations on the grid below label each one. This is going to be a rough sketch of what you see in the calculator window. All right, so we're going to go back to our calculator. Just double check here. We're going to go to y equals. We have our three equations in y1, y2, and y3. We're going to do zoom 9 to look at the graph. So here's our first data set in Syracuse, our second data set in Washington, and our third data set in Austin. Remember, if you're not sure, you can look at the colors here. We know that Syracuse is blue. We know that Washington is going to be red. And we know on this graph that Austin is going to be black. All right, and there we have it. It's just a rough sketch. Don't worry. All right, let's take a look at the questions. Do the graphs intersect? Well, they clearly do not intersect. Are these graphs representative of what was observed in the data? So we could see that we've got Syracuse, New York having lower temperatures, Washington sort of in the middle, and Austin has the highest temperatures. So let's look at the data. And you can see that, Syracuse obviously has the lower temperatures, we've got middle temperatures, and definitely higher temperatures in Austin, and that makes sense. So if you examine the data, you notice that the cities are arranged such that Syracuse is cold, Washington is warm, and Austin is hot for every month. So there'll never be a point of intersection. All right, everybody, that's all I have for this lesson. The moral of this story is if you like warm weather, you're probably better off living in Austin. So hope you enjoyed it. Lots of practice to come. Have a great day.